For more than 400 years, they were the undisputed masters of the East, a superpower, really, built on this ancient, incredible glory and fueled by a literal sacred fire. We're talking about the Sassanids, the Second Persian Empire. Now, this was a civilization that didn't just fight Rome, it humbled Rome. They created a golden age. But their end changed the world forever. And today, we're going to dive into exactly how it all went down.
So that's the big question, right? How does an empire that lasts for 4 centuries just disappear? And the answer, as you might guess, isn't simple. It's not about one bad battle or one clumsy king. No, the fall of the Sassanid Empire is this incredible, gripping story of reaching the absolute peak of power, making a single fatal mistake, and then getting hit by an unforeseen storm that just swept their whole world away.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to look at their fiery origins, how they even came to be. Then we'll check out their greatest triumphs, those moments of peak power. After that, we'll dig into the catastrophic war that pretty much broke them. Then comes the arrival of a new, unexpected power. And finally, and this is maybe the coolest part, we'll explore how their culture managed to survive long, long after the empire itself was gone. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in the 3rd century AD. The old Parthian Empire, which had been ruling Persia for ages, is just exhausted. They've been in this constant, grinding war with Rome, and they're worn out. And from the heartland of Persia, a new group rises up. They're a dynasty of priests, the Sassanids, led by this ambitious founder, Ardashir I, and they have one single mission: to bring back the glory days of the first great Persian Empire. And 224 AD, this is the year. This is when it all kicks off. Ardashir I overthrows the last Parthian king. But you've got to understand, this wasn't just a new guy on the throne. Not at all. This was a full-blown revolution, and it was built on a really, really powerful idea. And that idea was Zoroastrianism. It's this ancient faith centered around a cosmic battle between light and darkness, good and evil. And by making this the official state religion, the Sassanids basically gave themselves a divine mandate. Suddenly, their expansion wasn't just about conquering land anymore. Oh no, it was a holy war, a cosmic struggle. And you can probably guess who they were going to clash with. This put them on a direct collision course with the West. And boy, did they collide. Fueled by all this religious energy, the Sassanids entered this period of just incredible strength. There are 2 kings you really need to know from this era, 2 guys who would define what it meant to be at the peak of Persian power. And they both happened to be named Shapur. See, the Sassanids weren't content to just, match Rome. They wanted to surpass them. They wanted to be the undisputed #1. And under Ardashir's son, the first Shapur, they pulled off something that literally nobody in the ancient world thought was even possible. Yeah, you heard that right. In 260 AD, Shapur I not only defeated a Roman army, he captured the Roman Emperor Valerian alive. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. A Roman emperor. This is the figurehead of the Western world, and he's now a prisoner of war for the rest of his life. It was an absolute world-shaking humiliation for Rome, and it sent a crystal-clear message: there's a new superpower in the East, and you'd better get used to it. Okay, so if you think that's wild, listen to this. The way the Sassanids secured their dynasty is one of the most bizarre stories in all of history. We're talking about Shapur II. So when his dad died, the nobles were desperate for an heir. So what do? They literally performed a coronation ceremony on his pregnant mother's womb. They put the crown on her belly. He was crowned king before he was even born. And the crazy thing is, he grew up to be this incredibly formidable ruler who just expanded the empire like crazy. All right, so this brings us forward to the 6th century. And on the one hand, things have never been better. Under a philosopher king named Khosrow I, the Sassanid Empire hits its absolute cultural peak. I mean, this is a true golden age of science, art, intellect, the whole shebang. But, and it's a big but, this golden age was living on borrowed time. It was perched right on the edge of a cliff. And this is what was at stake. I mean, look at this. Khosrow was known as the Immortal Soul, and he founded one of the world's greatest centers of learning, the Academy of Ganeshapur. This was the place where Greek, Indian, and Persian knowledge all came together to create something new. They even took the game of chess from India, adapted it, and it became this huge thing at court. We're talking about a civilization at the absolute height of its sophistication. So here's the fatal flaw. While Persia was flourishing culturally, it was locked in this brutal, non-stop death struggle with the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire. They called them the Eternal Wars,
and they went on for decades. It's like two heavyweight boxers just beating each other senseless round after round. They fought each other to a complete standstill, with a final massive battle in 627 AD. And after that, both empires were just broken. Their treasuries were empty, their armies were exhausted, their people had no fight left in them. And in doing so, they created this massive, dangerous power vacuum right in the middle of the world.
And as we all know, nature abhors a vacuum. While these two old, tired empires were bleeding each other dry, something totally new and incredibly dynamic was brewing just to their south. Down in the deserts of Arabia, a new faith, Islam, had unified the tribes, and they were about to just explode onto the world stage.
And just look at how fast this all happens. It's stunning. In 627, Persia is still a global superpower. Just 9 years later, 9 years, its main army is crushed. A few years after that, its military is basically annihilated. And by 651, the Sassanid Empire is officially gone. This was not a slow, gentle decline. This was a lightning-fast takeover. So you have to ask, why so fast? How could this happen? Well, here's the key takeaway. The Sassanid army that faced the Arab armies wasn't the same one that captured a Roman emperor. It was just a shadow of its former self. It was, as one historian put it, half dead from those endless wars with the Byzantines. So they didn't just fall to a new power. They fell because they had already hollowed themselves out from the inside.
But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn, because the end of an empire isn't always the end of a civilization. In fact, the fall of the Sassanids is one of the most incredible examples in all of history of how a culture can not only survive being conquered, but actually end up thriving.
Now, the political end, it was just tragic and honestly pretty undignified. The last Sassanid king, a guy named Yazdegerd III, spent his last years on the run, a fugitive in his own country. He even begged the Emperor of China for help, but nobody was coming to save him. And in the end, he was murdered by a local miller who just wanted his jewelry. What a pathetic, sad end for a 400-year-old dynasty.
But this is where the real legacy begins. See, the Arab conquerors, they brought a new religion, a new language, a new energy. But they didn't really have experience running a huge, complex empire. So what did they do? They just adopted the Persian system. They used their administration, their art, their architecture, their infrastructure. Essentially, Persian culture became the sophisticated operating system for the brand new Islamic caliphate. And this fusion, this brilliant mix of Arab energy and Persian sophistication, that is what created what we now call the Islamic Golden Age. Think about it. The greatest scientists, doctors, and poets of this whole era, people you've heard of like Avicenna and Rumi, they were ethnically Persian. Yeah, they wrote in Arabic, but their cultural DNA, their way of thinking, that was Sassanid. The empire was gone, for sure, but its mind lived on. So that brings us back to a big question, doesn't it? The story of the Sassanids really forces you to ask, what is true power, really? Is it about armies and borders and how long your dynasty lasts? Or is it about the resilience of ideas, of art, of a unique way of seeing the world? Because the legacy of Persia really suggests that sometimes a culture can end up conquering its conqueror.